My sister's grades were very strange. If I scored 600, she would score 610. When I pushed to 610, she immediately hit 620. Her score always beat mine by exactly 10 points. However, once I took a leave of absence and missed an exam, my sister's results instantly became a total disaster. My hypothesis was thus confirmed. My sister's grades were tied to mine. Using this as a starting point, a crazy plan began to form in my mind. If I scored above 740 on the Gaokao, what exactly would happen then? Before the Gaokao, I studied like an ascetic monk, while my sister lived like a hedonist. Relying on me as her safety net, she was lawlessly arrogant. She even abandoned her studies entirely to go wild with friends. Every time she was caught, she had a look of utter impatience. My sister rolled her eyes, slamming her phone onto the table. Are you guys annoying, or what? Rest assured, the top scorer of the Gaokao will definitely be me, and I did not betray her trust. In every mock exam, I steadily delivered her to the throne of being ranked first in the grade. I wanted her to be intoxicated in that false paradise, while in the shadows, I was step-by-step closing in on a score of 741. The days of the second semester of senior year were like a dull knife, slowly slicing at my nerves. I woke up at 5 a.m. every morning and went to bed at midnight. Aside from eating and using the restroom, I spent every moment doing practice problems. I locked myself in that tiny, sunless room, functioning with the precision of an unstoppable machine. My sister's room was right next door. Occasionally, the sound of her laughing on video calls with friends reached me, or her exaggerated gasps while binge-watching dramas. Sometimes she would intentionally turn the volume up very high, as if showing off to me how unscrupulously she could enjoy herself. I didn't care. I had long since learned to block everything out. There was only one voice looping in my head. 741 points. This number was like a nail driven into my heart. Whenever I wanted to give up, I would press down on it hard. The pain kept me awake. Around March, Lin Xiaoxiao began frequently entering and leaving my room. Initially, I didn't pay it much mind, assuming she was just looking for something. Later, I realized something was wrong. The way she looked at me had changed. It was full of scrutiny and testing. Once, while I was working on the final, most difficult math problem, she pushed open the door and came in. Standing behind me, she stared at my scratch paper for a long time. "Brother, why have you been so diligent lately?" Without looking up, I continued writing. "It's all right. The Gaokao is coming. How can I not be diligent?" Lin Xiaoxiao leaned in closer, trying to see what I was writing clearly. "But you've never worked this hard before." My heart skipped a beat, but I kept a straight face. I intentionally let out a sigh, put down my pen, and feigned exhaustion. "It's Mom who's pressuring me. She said if I don't get into a top university, she'll cut off my living allowance. What else can I do?" Lin Xiaoxiao's expression relaxed, a hint of a sneer even forming on her lips. "You... getting into a top university?" She turned and left. Before leaving, she didn't forget to take a parting shot. "Don't exhaust yourself. After all, I'll be the top scorer in the end." I looked at her back and said nothing. Only after the door closed did I pick up my pen again. The corners of my mouth curled up slightly. Good. Keep maintaining that contempt. The more you despise me, the safer I am. But Lin Xiaoxiao's alertness hadn't entirely vanished. In the days that followed, she started probing my revision progress, both openly and covertly. She asked me which subject was the hardest and what score I expected on the mock exams. Sometimes, she would intentionally say discouraging things in front of me, hoping to shake my resolve. I countered her every move. I intentionally controlled my scores on every mock exam, not allowing myself to appear too prominent. I stayed within the top 5 of the grade, visible but not enough to arouse her suspicion. My true trump card was hidden in my heart. Those most difficult problem types, those most obscure techniques, I only practiced them alone in the middle of the night. Once finished, I would tear the scratch paper to shreds and flush them down the toilet, leaving no trace behind. One night, while I was working on competition-level problems, I suddenly heard movement in the living room. It was my mother and Lin Xiaoxiao talking. I quietly opened my door a crack to eavesdrop. "Xiaoxiao, has your brother been working too hard lately? I see him locking himself in his room every day, not even coming out to eat." Lin Xiaoxiao laughed dismissively. "Mom, what are you worried about? No matter how hard he tries, how far can he really get? Besides, whatever score he gets, I'll be 10 points higher than him. The harder he works, won't my score be even higher?" Right, my daughter is the smart one. Then let him work hard. He's basically just working for you." Hearing those words, I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. But on the surface, I remained calm. I gently closed the door and continued with my problems. One night in April, as I was doing problems as usual, I suddenly heard a faint sound outside the door. I pricked up my ears and listened carefully. The footsteps were very light, as if afraid of being discovered. Then came the sound of the doorknob turning, very slowly. I instantly understood she was spying on me. I didn't turn around. I continued to pretend I was focused on the questions. But in reality, I had already swapped the exam paper in my hand for a sheet of ordinary, basic problems. The truly high-difficulty materials had long been locked deep in my drawer. The door opened a tiny crack. Through my peripheral vision, I caught half of Lin Xiaoxiao's face. She was looking at the things on my desk. I intentionally sighed and muttered to myself, how did I get this question wrong again? It's too hard. Then I closed my notebook and rested my head on the desk to pretend I was resting. The crack in the door closed quietly, and the footsteps gradually faded. I sat up and gave a cold laugh. Lin Xiaoxiao, the more you guard against me, the more it shows you have a guilty conscience. You know better than anyone that those scores aren't yours. You're just a parasite. Without me, you are nothing. On the 5th mock exam, I scored 695. Lin Xiaoxiao scored 705, ranking first in the grade. The day the results came out, she celebrated wildly at home. My parents crowded around her with warm concerns, praising her for bringing honor to the family. The dining table was covered with her favorite dishes. I sat in the corner silently eating, like an invisible person. My father put down his chopsticks, looking at Lin Xiaoxiao with great satisfaction. Xiaoxiao, you performed well this time. Keep it up. And the Gaokao is in the bag. My daughter is truly brilliant. Just look at whose genes she has. My mother echoed him, her voice filled with unconcealed pride. Lin Xiaoxiao gave me a smug look, a mocking smile playing on her lips. Brother, you need to work harder. Don't fall too far behind me. Otherwise, it'll look bad for mom and dad. I gave a brief response without arguing and continued eating, but in my heart, I was laughing. Enjoy it. Enjoy it to your heart's content. This is your final moment in the spotlight. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I repeatedly rehearsed everything that could happen. During those 2 days of the Gaokao, June came, and on the night of June 6th, Lin Xiaoxiao went out to drink with friends, saying she was celebrating in advance. Zhu Mengqing not only didn't stop her, but even stuffed a wad of cash into her hand, saying her daughter had worked hard and should relax. I watched this scene through the crack in my bedroom door. There was no ripple in my heart, only a sense of irony. That day, I went to bed at 8 p.m., setting my alarm for 6 a.m. the next morning. Lying in bed, I was exceptionally calm, like a swordsman waiting for his blade to be unsheathed. All my endurance would be rewarded tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up on time, ate a few bites of breakfast, and left. Mother took Lin Xiaoxiao to her testing center, only giving me a perfunctory, do your best. I nodded, saying nothing more. I thought to myself, this is the last time anyway. From now on, we go our separate ways. My testing center was in the school's teaching building. I was assigned a window seat on the 3rd floor. The sunlight was just right. I sat down, arranged my stationery one by one, took a deep breath, and closed my eyes. I silently whispered to myself, Yun Feng, you've waited 18 years for this day. The bell for the Chinese exam rang. The moment I opened the test paper, my mind was clearer than ever before. Every question felt as familiar as an old friend. I anticipated every trap in the reading comprehension, navigating them in advance. The essay prompt was exactly the type I had practiced countless times. My pen moved as if guided by a god. After the Chinese exam, I walked out of the hall, and Lin Xiaoxiao immediately rushed over to corner me. She was wearing elaborate makeup, but there was a hint of panic in her eyes that was hard to detect. She asked how I did. I said, it was okay. Lin Xiaoxiao frowned and pressed, what does okay mean? How many did you get wrong in the multiple choice? Looking at her, I suddenly found it a bit funny. She was trying to confirm my score so she could calculate her own. I don't know. I haven't checked the answers. Lin Xiaoxiao curled her lip, dissatisfied with the answer, but she didn't push further, and turned to walk away. I watched her back and thought, why are you in such a hurry? The results will be out tomorrow anyway. You'll have plenty to remember then. Halfway through the math exam in the afternoon, something unexpected happened. I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my stomach. It might have been something unclean I ate in the morning, or perhaps the pressure was too much. Cold sweat poured down instantly. I slumped over the desk for several seconds before I could recover. The proctor walked over and whispered, student, are you okay? Do you need to go to the infirmary? I shook my head and gritted my teeth. I'm fine. Are you joking? I've waited 18 years. For this one exam. Even if I die, I'll die on this test paper. I pinched my thigh hard. The sharp pain made me temporarily forget the discomfort in my abdomen. I continued the exam. The numbers and formulas blurred before my eyes at one point, but I relied on muscle memory to finish every single problem. For the final, most difficult problem, I used 3 different methods to verify the answer. Only after confirming it was correct did I put down my pen. When I walked out of the exam hall, I was almost collapsing. I found a secluded corner to squat down, taking a long time to recover. Lin Xiaoxiao messaged me asking how the math exam went. I replied with one word, normal. She immediately sent back a smug emoji. Clearly, she thought she was safe again. I looked at that emoji and found it laughable. Ignorance is bliss, and she was the embodiment of it. The next day were the comprehensive science and English exams. Most of my strength had returned. These two subjects were my strengths, especially the physics problems, chemical deductions, and biological genetics. They were all types I had practiced 1,000 times. I completed them with fluid ease. With 20 minutes left for checking, I re-verified every question twice to ensure no mistakes were made. English was even easier. It would be hard for the graders not to give me a high score. After the final subject, I walked out of the testing center. Standing at the building entrance, I looked up at the sky. The sun was blinding, but I didn't turn away. I just stood there straight, letting the light wash over my face. 18 years. I finally made it through. Lin Xiaoxiao was the first to rush over and block my path. She was dressed exceptionally brightly today, like a proud peacock. Her eyes sparkled with greed as she asked me how I did. Good. Better than ever before. I've never felt this good in my life. Lin Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up instantly, as if she were looking at a mountain of gold and silver. She turned and ran to claim credit from our parents. Mom! Dad! My brother said he did amazingly well. Then I must have done even better. Watching her jubilant back, I smiled too. It was the smile of a hunter, watching his prey fall into the trap. Lin Xiaoxiao, do you know what you look like right now? You look like a moth diving into a flame, thinking it's the sun. During the summer break after the Gaokao, Lin Xiaoxiao completely let herself go. She guaranteed our parents with full confidence that she would be among the top in the province. She took a massive advance on her allowance. Not only did she upgrade her phone and computer to the top specs, but she also took the money my parents had worked so hard to save, to go out and squander it with a group of fair-weather friends. Her social media was updated every day with her partying. She had no idea she was dancing on the edge of a cliff. One night, I saw a post she made. It was a photo of her at a high-end restaurant. The caption read, "The future top scorer is celebrating in advance." A crowd of people liked and commented below, saying things like, "Xiaoxiao, you're amazing, and you should treat us all to dinner." I looked at those comments and felt only a sense of absurdity. Meanwhile, I wanted to go back to the countryside to see my grandfather, and asked my parents for travel money. Before I could finish, my mother snapped at me. She didn't even look up, her tone dismissive. "Go see who? The family has no money. Don't you see Xiaoxiao needs money?" Looking at her self-righteous face, I felt a wave of nausea. They wouldn't give me a penny, yet they threw money at Lin Xiaoxiao like water. These were my parents. My father sat on the sofa watching TV, and added without looking back, "If you want to go, find your own way. Don't bother the family." I didn't say another word. I turned and went back to my room. Early the next morning, I went to a construction site to find a job hauling bricks. The sun was brutal, making me dizzy and blurred my vision, but I gritted my teeth and worked for half a month, just to save enough for the fare and gifts for my grandfather. That half month was one of the hardest times of my life. By the end of it, I had saved over 1,000 yuan, enough for the round-trip fare, and some supplements for my grandfather. The day the scores were released happened to be Lin Xiaoxiao's 18th birthday party. In order to be crowned in front of everyone, at her life's most shining moment, she organized an extremely lavish banquet. All the distant relatives, as well as my parents' colleagues and superiors, were invited. In the banquet hall, flattery was everywhere. A distant relative holding a wine glass leaned toward my father, full of smiles. "Old Lin, your ancestors must be smiling upon you. Both of your twins are so outstanding." Another relative chimed in, her tone a bit sharp. "The older son just studies blindly. He's not as sensible as Xiaoxiao. She has the grades and is clever. 100 times better than her brother." The younger generation all surrounded Lin Xiaoxiao like she was a star. A female cousin was so envious her eyes turned red. "Sister Xiaoxiao, you're too amazing. With a top university admission in one hand and a handsome boyfriend in the other, you're truly a winner in life. What time can we check the scores? We want to witness the historical moment the top scorer is born." "Don't worry. If I'm among the top in the province, the top university's admissions offices will call in advance to recruit me." As soon as she spoke, a phone indeed started ringing, but it wasn't calling her, it was calling me. Under the shocked gaze of everyone present, I answered call after call. The admissions team from Tsinghua, the Peking University office, and admissions officers from several other top-tier universities. I thanked them politely, stating that I would consider my options carefully. Lin Xiaoxiao's eyes were nearly popping out of her head as she stared at her own silent phone. She struggled to maintain her composure, squeezing out through gritted teeth. "The best is always saved for last." Finally, the scoring portal opened. Everyone swarmed around, urging Lin Xiaoxiao to log in. I also quietly opened the inquiry page in my corner. Despite my confidence, now that the moment to check was actually here, my palms were sweating slightly. My mother first turned to ask me, casually inquiring about my score. I showed the phone screen to everyone and said calmly, "I scored 741 points." The room erupted in an uproar. I suppressed the stormy tidal wave of joy in my heart. Expressionless, I had succeeded. I really did it. My mother froze for a second, gave a stingy nod, and without even looking at me again, she lunged toward Lin Xiaoxiao. Her voice trembled with excitement. "Quick! Xiao Xiao must be even higher. Lin Xiaoxiao was surrounded so tightly there was no escape. She had nowhere to hide. With a shaking finger, she clicked the button. In the next second, her face froze. Her expression was as if she had swallowed a fly. The screen clearly displayed 3 bright red digits. 751. Lin Xiaoxiao's voice was shivering. The surrounding area was dead silent. One oblivious, distant relative was still blindly praising her. Wow! 751 points. That's 10 points higher than her brother. Xiao Xiao is truly a prodigy. Wait, if I remember correctly, the maximum score for the Gaokao is only 750. Right? The atmosphere instantly solidified. Lin Xiaoxiao panicked. Cold sweat streaked through her elaborate makeup, messing it up everywhere. System error. Too many people are checking. She began to refresh the page like a madwoman, her fingers nearly breaking the screen. Once, twice, 3 times. That damned 751 remained fixed in the total score column like a nail. Someone suggested trying a different phone, thinking it might be a cache problem. Lin Xiaoxiao grabbed it like a lifeline, snatching someone else's phone. The result was still 751. That extra point was like a massive slap, delivered hard across her face. Just then, the doors to the banquet hall were pushed open. Several uniformed police officers and Education Bureau officials walked in with serious expressions. The official in the lead looked around and asked in a deep voice, "Who is Lin Xiaoxiao?" The Education Examination Authority has detected an extreme abnormality in the scores. There is suspicion of a malicious attack on the system or major fraud. Please come with us for an investigation. Lin Xiaoxiao's legs gave out from fear and she collapsed directly onto the floor. Her face was as pale as a ghost. My parents also panicked upon seeing this scene, but their first reaction wasn't to comfort their daughter, but a subconscious desire to find a scapegoat. In the chaos, my mother actually pushed me forward. She pointed at me and screamed, "He did it! He must have been jealous of his sister and hacked the system to change the scores. Anyway, take him. This has nothing to do with my daughter." There it was again. These were my parents. In a critical moment, they didn't hesitate to throw me under the bus, even if the reason was absurd and laughable, even if the logic was total nonsense. As long as they could save their precious daughter, sacrificing me meant nothing. My heart was completely dead. Instead, I felt an immense sense of relief. I brushed off my mother's hand and looked coldly at this bunch of clowns. I'm not a hacker. I'm Lin Feng, the province's top science scorer. Lin Xiaoxiao is right there, the one who achieved that miracle score of 751 points. My father, furious, rushed up to slap me. I grabbed his wrist firmly, my fierce gaze making his heart skip a beat. Try touching me. The officials are right behind me. Right now. Top universities are fighting over me, and the media is rushing to report on me. Go ahead, try me. From this moment on, in this house, no one could control me anymore, and no one could bully me again. This coming-of-age ceremony meant for showing off turned into a complete farce. Lin Xiaoxiao was taken away for investigation, leaving behind a total mess. The news of the 751-point score immediately blew up the internet. It trended nationwide that very night. Everyone was watching the joke unfold. Greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. They got too bold when buying scores. If you're going to cheat, use your brain. The max score is 750. Getting 751 is an insult to the graders and an insult to the system. Someone dug up Lin Xiaoxiao's social media, revealing she'd been partying for the last 6 months and hadn't studied at all. Public opinion turned entirely against her. Everyone believed she used connections to change her score, but someone's hand slipped and added too much. As I scrolled through those comments, I felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. I had waited 18 years for this moment, to finally let everyone see the truth. The investigation results came out quickly. On Lin Xiaoxiao's answer sheet, a multiple-choice question scanned an extra point, resulting in that total score. Although there was no direct evidence proving she had tampered with the answer sheet, in the interest of fairness, the Education Bureau decided to use the backup exam and have her retake it alone. When the news reached our house, Lin Xiaoxiao was lying on the sofa scrolling through her phone. Hearing about the retest, she jumped up in a panic. Her face turned ghostly pale. Retest? Why should I have to retake it? That score was real. It was the system's fault. My father sat nearby, face grim, and hissed a reprimand. Keep it down, the neighbors will hear you. My mother was pacing frantically, trying to comfort Xiaoxiao while planning a strategy. Xiaoxiao, don't panic. If you have to retake it, then retake it. You're so smart. It'll be no problem at all. But Lin Xiaoxiao seemed to go mad, throwing a tantrum on the floor, crying and demanding I take it with her. Without my brother, I won't take it. He has to be there with me. I want him sitting right next to me. She rushed over and grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. Her eyes were terrifyingly bloodshot. Lin Feng, you must accompany me. Do you hear me? I shook her hand off, my voice ice cold. I've already finished my exam. Why should I retake it with you? Lin Xiaoxiao froze, staring at me with utter disbelief, as if she never imagined I would refuse her. My mother immediately rushed over to take her side. Lin Feng, what's with that attitude? Your sister is in this state. Can't you just help her, Feng? This is about our family's reputation. What's wrong with accompanying Xiaoxiao just once? I looked at them and found it both laughable and tragic. Our family's reputation? It was Lin Xiaoxiao's reputation. None of this had ever had anything to do with me. Without a word, I turned and went back to my room. Locking the door behind me, I ignored the banging and shouting from outside. Such an absurd request was, of course, rejected by the bureau. In the end, under the city's supervision, Lin Xiaoxiao took the retest all alone. The exam was set in a bureau meeting room, with surveillance cameras running 24/7. 3 proctors watched her every move, fearful of any more tricks. As expected, she bombed it completely. Her total score on the retest was 157, even lower than what she'd normally get by guessing. She only had the foundation of a 300-point student anyway, and she'd spent the last 6 months dating, dreaming of being the top student without ever opening a book. The day the results came out, I was working at a construction site. A classmate messaged me, saying Lin Xiaoxiao scored 157. I paused for a moment, then laughed so hard I crouched on the ground for ages. A coworker thought I had heat stroke and tried to help me, but I waved him off. I'm just too happy. This retest completely stripped away her mask. First 751, then 157. The massive contrast made the internet explode again. The comments were more brilliant than the last. Ha ha ha. 157 is her true level. This is solid proof. That 751 was definitely cheating. Someone even made a meme, putting 751 and 157 side by side with the caption, "From heaven to hell takes only one retest." Unable to handle the cyberbullying, Lin Xiaoxiao tried to post her old report cards to prove herself, but netizens picked them apart. The suspicious leap in performance during senior year contrasted with her previous messy grades. She barely scraped 300 before everyone realized she'd been cheating since the start of senior year. By the way, netizens also dug up my scores. From elementary to high school, every major exam was found. I had consistently been in the top 3 my whole life. This is a real top student, solid as a rock. Someone commented, are they really siblings? How can the gap be this huge? Another said, one is a 750. The other isn't even worth 250. Looking at those comments, I had mixed feelings. I used to think good grades would earn my parents' approval. Later, I realized no matter how high I scored, I would never compare to Lin Xiaoxiao in their eyes. Because they didn't want a brilliant son. They wanted a tool to support their daughter. The teachers and students who once praised her now avoided her like the plague. Even my parents were whispered about when they left the house. Neighbors behind their backs gossiped, saying the Lin daughter was a fraud, who'd cheated them all for years. A complete embarrassment to the family. During that time, Lin Xiaoxiao hid in her room, afraid to see anyone. She was like a street rat, curtains tightly drawn. She even made my mother leave food at the door. She refused to see a soul. I, holding my admission letter to the medical school of Tsinghua, packed my bags and went back to the countryside to stay with Grandpa. Once school started in late August, I would finally be free, or so I thought. Summer in the countryside was like a steamer, but I felt at peace. Grandpa's house was at the foot of the hill, 3 small rooms. An old locust tree stood in front, filled with the noisy buzz of cicadas. Yet it wasn't annoying. This was my real home. I'd been dumped here as far back as I can remember. My parents claimed the air was better for my health, but in reality they just found me an eyesore. They wanted Xiaoxiao to have all the love and resources. Having me around meant one more mouth to feed. Grandpa never spoke ill of my parents. He just quietly looked after me, teaching me to read and write, telling me to rely only on myself. What he said most often was that studying was the only way out for a poor kid. I carved those words into my bones. I stayed at the old house for over 20 days, waking up early to help Grandpa feed the chickens, chopping wood in the yard in the morning, walking through the fields with him in the afternoon, and sitting under the locust tree in the evening. He told me about the past, about how mischievous my dad was as a boy, and how hardworking my mom was when she first married in. I listened to these unfamiliar tales, as if they were stories about another family, because in my memory, my parents were never like that. One night, as we sat in the yard, the moonlight was bright. Grandpa suddenly asked how I did on the Gaokao. I thought for a bit and answered honestly, quite well. Grandpa nodded, a light in his cloudy eyes as he looked at the moon. He was silent for a while, then said, that's good, that's good. He sighed, his voice a bit raspy. I haven't achieved much in my life. I'm counting on you. I lowered my head, my nose stinging. My whole life. He was the only one who'd said that to me, the only one who truly wanted me to succeed. Grandpa, when I finish university and get a job, I'll take you to the city to live. He waved it off, smiling like a child. I'm not used to the city. Knowing you care is enough. That night, I lay on the brick bed in the old house, listening to the insects outside. I thought that once the results were official, everything would settle. I would show everyone that Lin Feng was not a useless pawn, nor a stepping stone. August 12th, half a month before school starts. I was helping Grandpa dry corn in the yard, pouring baskets of golden corn cobs onto bamboo mats to spread them out. The phone in my pocket suddenly rang. It was my mother's number. I was surprised. She almost never contacts me first. The last time she called was before the Gaokao, asking about my expected score, with a tone full of scrutiny and calculation. I answered the phone. There was sobbing on the other end. Mother's voice was hoarse and urgent. Xiao Feng, come back quickly. Something's happened to your father. He's almost gone. My heart sank. The winnowing basket nearly slipped from my hands. What? How is he sick? Which hospital? Mother only cried, ignoring my questions, repeatedly telling me to come back. Then the line went dead. I stood there, my mind a total mess. Grandpa came out of the house, saw my face and asked what happened. I told him the news. His expression changed too, urging me to pack and leave. No matter what. That's your father. You have to go. I nodded, rushed inside, and shoved some clothes into my bag. Before I left, Grandpa ran after me and pressed a cloth bundle into my hand. It was heavy. Take this. It's what I've saved up. I opened it to see a pile of crumpled small bills and a few $100 notes. Altogether, it was about 2,000 yuan. That was his life savings, accumulated bit by bit from selling eggs and vegetables. I tried to refuse, but he'd already turned back into the house. His stooped back looked incredibly small in the doorway. I clutched the bundle, my eyes burning. It was a 2-hour bus ride from the village to the county seat, a 3-hour train from the county seat to the city, then a transfer to a high-speed train. The whole trip would take nearly 10 hours. I caught the earliest bus. Sitting on the bumpy ride, scenery flying past, my mind began to cool down. Something was wrong. Too many things were off. Mother's crying was too exaggerated, like she was acting. Plus, she didn't say what the illness was, which hospital he was in, or how serious it actually was. She just kept pressuring me to come home. If it were really a medical emergency, she should have said, your dad is at X hospital. Come quickly. Not just come back. Come back home? If he were in the ER, how could she be sitting at home calling me? And her tone had an indescribable urgency. It wasn't the urgency of a worried wife, but the fear that I wouldn't come back. The more I thought, the fishier it felt. I tried calling my father's phone. It was busy. I tried again. Still busy. I changed my approach and called one of my father's co-workers, an uncle I'd met a few times. Politely, I asked if anything had happened to my dad. The man sounded surprised. Your dad just treated us all to dinner last week. He's doing great. Why? Oh, nothing. I might have misheard something. I made up an excuse and hung up. As expected, I leaned back in my seat, looking at the rolling hills outside. The weight on my heart actually lifted. It's not that I'm cold-blooded. I just know this family too well. If my father were truly dying, Lin Xiaoxiao would have been crying online long ago, to milk sympathy. There's no way it would be this quiet. Since it's a scam, what is their goal for tricking me back? Took me a few hours to figure it out. The answer was obvious. Lin Xiaoxiao's mess was too big. That 751-point joke was still trending. She couldn't get into a good university even if she repeated a year, because without me, she was nothing. Meanwhile, I was about to start a new life at a top university, escaping this swamp forever. They would never allow that to happen. In their eyes, my only value was being Lin Xiaoxiao's stepping stone, her tool, her backup. Understanding this, I didn't panic. Instead, I felt like a hunter who had set a trap, waiting for the prey to walk in. But this time, the hunter and the prey would swap places. Since you want to act, I'll play along to the end. But the final script will be written by me. On the way, I used Grandpa's money to buy a cheap secondary phone and a power bank. I charged both phones fully, downloaded a recording app that automatically uploads to the cloud, and tested it 3 times to ensure it was foolproof. I also messaged some future classmates from my university group, simply explaining the situation. I told them if they didn't hear from me for 48 hours, they should call the police for me. I shared my real-time location with them, just in case. Holy cow, brother. Your family situation is intense. Don't worry. I've got your back. Go ahead. If something happens, We'll call the cops immediately. Stay safe. Keep in touch. Reading those messages, I felt a surge of warmth. Strangers I'd never met were willing to help, while my own flesh and blood wanted to throw me into a pit. The world is truly ironic. By the time I reached home, it was the following evening. The sunset painted the old building a dusky yellow. I stood downstairs with my suitcase, looking up at the place where I lived for 12 years, but never felt I belonged. I took a deep breath, went up and knocked. My mother opened the door, her eyes red, looking like she'd just been crying. Seeing me, she froze for a second, then forced a flattering smile. "Oh, Xiaofeng, you're finally back. Come in, come in." Her unusual enthusiasm gave me goosebumps. When had she ever been this attentive to me? I entered calmly, quickly scanned the living room. My father was sitting on the sofa watching TV, remote in hand, looking perfectly healthy. There wasn't a trace of illness. I stood in the entryway, hand still on my luggage handle, and asked coolly, "I thought Dad was sick? Why is he home watching TV?" The air in the room froze for a moment. My father glanced up at me, looking uncomfortable. The smile on my mother's face stiffened, and she quickly tried to cover. "Oh, it was a false alarm. Your dad felt unwell yesterday, but the hospital tests said it was nothing serious. We thought since you're heading off to school soon, we'd want you back for a reunion. We're family after all." Hearing the word family from her was incredibly ironic. I didn't call her out, just nodded, gave a brief acknowledgement, and put on my slippers. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lin Xiaoxiao at the other end of the sofa. She was huddled in the corner, in her pajamas, hair messy, face sallow, with dark circles under her eyes. She was unrecognizable compared to the smug, golden girl of a few months ago. As I walked in, she looked up, her gaze complex. There was resentment, fear, and something else I couldn't place. I ignored her and went straight to my room with my bags. My room was at the very back, about 10 square meters, getting no sunlight year-round. It used to be a storage room, barely cleared out for me. When I came back from Grandpa's for school, Lin Xiaoxiao's room was south-facing, the master bedroom huge and bright. Resource allocation in this house had always been that clearly divided. I closed the door and began inspecting the room. The desk, the bookshelf, the closet, under the bed. I checked everywhere, confirming nothing had been tampered with. I took out the secondary phone from my bag. I found a hidden angle, tucked among the clutter on the bookshelf. The camera pointed right at the door. I started the recording, set it to silent, ensuring there would be no notification sounds. After that, I lay on the bed, pretending to nap, but my ears were sharp, catching every tiny sound from the living room. For dinner, Mother made a full table of food. She actually invited me out to eat, even putting food on my plate. "Xiaofeng, you've lost weight. You're leaving home soon. Eat more." I had no appetite, my mind busy analyzing what they were up to, and when they would show their fangs. After dinner, my father coughed and cleared his throat, as if starting a lecture. "Xiaofeng, the reason we had you come back was actually to discuss something with you." I looked up, wearing a look of perfect confusion. "It's like this. Your sister hasn't been doing well lately. You know, the Gaokao situation was a huge blow to her. She's very depressed now. She won't even leave her room. Your mom and I talked it over. You're her brother, the person she's closest to. Can you spend some time with her? Talk her through it?" This was it. I waited for the trap. Sure enough, Mother chimed in, her voice full of probing. "That's right, Xiaofeng. You two are fraternal twins. Blood is thicker than water. The family bond can't be broken. What's wrong with helping your sister?" I still didn't respond, just watched them. The atmosphere was tense for a moment. Lin Xiaoxiao suddenly looked up, watching me with red-rimmed eyes. Her voice trembled. "Brother, I know I was wrong, okay? I've thought it through lately. It was all my fault. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Can you give me another chance?" I almost laughed out loud. Her acting had improved, but I wasn't buying it. I asked them what they actually wanted, tearing through the pretense. I had no patience for their mind games. My father and mother exchanged looks, seemingly confirming something. Finally, my father showed his hand. "Xiaofeng, it's like this. We've come up with a way, so Xiaoxiao can get into university too." I raised an eyebrow, gesturing for him to continue. "Xiaoxiao told us about her Gaokao scores and everything, that 10-point rule. You probably know it better than we do. There's a special connection between you two. As long as you're there, she can get high scores." My heart skipped a beat. She had actually told them that secret. Father stood up and walked toward me, his tone leaving no room for argument. "So your mother and I have discussed it. We want you to delay your admission to Tsinghua for a year. Repeat the year and take the Gaokao with Xiao Xiao next year. Then she'll be able to get into a good university too, with 2 top-tier graduates in the family. Imagine the honor it would bring us. I was stunned, not by the absurdity of the request, but by the sheer entitlement they showed when making it, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if sacrificing my entire future for Lin Xiaoxiao was only right. Mother seized the moment, grabbing my hand. Her eyes gleamed with calculation. Xiao Feng, this won't hurt you. You're so smart. You'll definitely get in again next year. With the reputation of a top scorer and another year of hard work, Tsinghua will be begging to have you. And Xiao Xiao will have a future too. All 4 of us will be successful. Isn't that a win for everyone? A win for everyone. What a joke. I already have my admission notice. Why would I repeat the year? Father waved his hand dismissively. What's a notice? If you don't report, it just becomes scrap paper. Xiao Feng, you're the brother. What's wrong with giving in to your sister? Once she's successful, she won't forget you. You'll get a share of whatever she earns. I was listening to the funniest joke in the world. I said, I refuse. As soon as I spoke, the atmosphere froze instantly. Father's face darkened. Mother's expression stiffened. Lin Xiaoxiao snapped her head up, the pleading in her eyes replaced by malice. Father stood up, looming over me. His voice was threatening. Lin Feng, what kind of attitude is that? We're trying to reason with you. How can you reject it so flatly? I said, because there is nothing to discuss. I also stood up and looked them in the eye. You want me to give up Tsinghua? To repeat a year with someone who scored 157? To use my score to get her into a top school? Why? Mother shrieked. Because she's your sister. You're the brother. Helping her is your duty. I've helped her for 18 years. Since we were kids. You gave her every resource. You threw me in the countryside and didn't care. Now that she's ruined herself, you suddenly remember me? Sacrificing my future to clean up her mess? Father slammed the table, making the bowls jump. Lin Feng, what's with your attitude? What attitude? This is my attitude. No. I turned to go to my room. Behind me, Lin Xiaoxiao let out a hysterical scream. Lin Feng, how dare you? Those points should have been mine. Without me, what are you? I stopped and turned back to see her distorted face. Lin Xiaoxiao, listen closely. Those points were written by my hand, stroke by stroke. They have nothing to do with you. That you can siphon my score is your dark magic, not your talent, and it's certainly not leverage to blackmail me. Lin Xiaoxiao was speechless with rage, tears streaming down her face. I couldn't tell if it was anger or desperation. Mother rushed to stand in front of her. She pointed at me and cursed, "You bastard, to upset your sister like this. Do you have any conscience?" I asked her, "Do you?" I didn't bother arguing further. I entered my room and locked the door behind me. From outside came the sound of things being thrown, along with my father's angry shouts, my mother's weeping, and Lin Xiaoxiao's screams all mixed together. It was like a boiling cauldron of chaos. I leaned against the door and closed my eyes, feeling strangely calm. Tonight was only the first round. The real battle was yet to come. I had a feeling they wouldn't give up so easily. Let them come. I had plenty of patience. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, my ears constantly alert. Around 2 a.m., I heard a faint rustling outside my door. It sounded like people whispering. I held my breath and listened closely. It was my father and mother. Mother's voice was very low, but I could still hear her. "Old Lin, should we take his things while he's asleep? Without his ID and the notice. Let's see how he can leave. The lights in his room are out. He must be asleep. Let's do it tonight. Before anything else happens." Footsteps approached the door. My heart raced, but I didn't move a muscle, pretending to be sound asleep. The door handle turned slightly. I was glad I had locked the door. Outside, I heard Mother's muffled curse. The brat actually locked the door. "Forget it. We'll do it tomorrow. He can't escape anyway." The footsteps faded away. I opened my eyes and stared into the dark. I sneered internally, just as I thought. They never had any intention of letting me leave. From the moment I stepped into this house, I had fallen into their trap. But what they didn't know was that I had already prepared. The winner of this game wasn't decided yet. The next morning, I tentatively tried the door handle. The door was locked from the outside. My heart sank. I went to the window and looked out. Outside the window was a security grate bolted shut. There was no way out. The phone signal was still there, but the Wi-Fi had been cut. I used my mobile data to message my roommate. I told them I was okay for now, but things weren't looking good and to stay on standby. Around 10 a.m., The door lock clicked. Mother entered with a bowl of porridge, a fake smile plastered on her face. Hungry? Have something to eat. Changed your mind. She placed the porridge on the table and sighed. Her tone carried a hint of threat. Xiaofeng, I'm advising you to be smart. So what if you got into Tsinghua? Who's going to pay for your tuition and living expenses? You think we'll give you a single cent? You won't even be able to afford the school. You'll have to come crawling back eventually. I looked at her without saying a word. Seeing my silence, she thought I was wavering, and doubled down. Is your admission notice even still around? Who knows? If you behave and cooperate, and repeat 1 year, next year we'll support you fully. If you don't. She didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. I still said nothing. After she left, I heard the door lock again. From that moment on, I was officially under house arrest. On the first day, I managed to stay calm. By the second day, I started getting anxious. Not out of fear, but because time was slipping away. The registration date was getting closer. I had to find a way out. On the third day, I decided to take a risk. At 2 a.m., when everyone was asleep, I quietly got up. I used the file on a pair of nail clippers to pick the lock. This old-fashioned spring lock wasn't hard to open. Took about 10 minutes. And finally, I heard a faint click. The door opened. I held my breath and crept out inch by inch. The living room was pitch black. I felt along the wall, toward the front door. My heart was pounding in my throat. The floorboards groaned slightly under my feet. With every sound, I stopped to listen. Confirming no one was awake, I continued. Just as my hand was about to touch the front door handle, the lights snapped on. I froze. My father was standing at the end of the hallway, holding a wooden club, his face livid. He had obviously been waiting. Trying to run? I didn't explain. I turned and ran back, but it was too late. He lunged forward in a few strides, and swung the club at my back. The sharp pain sent me sprawling to the floor. Then came a storm of blows and insults. I curled up, protecting my head. The club rained down on my body, each strike a searing agony. Trying to run? Refusing to listen. I'll beat the life out of you, you ungrateful brat. Mother and Lin Xiaoxiao appeared at some point. They stood by and watched. No one spoke to stop him. Lin Xiaoxiao even had a gleeful smile on her face. Father eventually grew tired and stopped, panting. I'm telling you, Lin Feng, you'll never escape this house. Not unless you agree to repeat the year. I lay on the floor, trembling all over. Not from fear, but from rage. 18 years of repressed anger. Nearly exploded in that moment, but I held back. It wasn't the time. I didn't have enough evidence yet, and my plan wasn't ready. I was dragged back to my room and thrown on the bed. The door was locked again, with an additional new lock. It was an external padlock this time. I couldn't pick it. I lay on the bed, my back burning with pain. That pain only made my mind clearer. Lin Feng, what's the rush? You've waited 18 years. A few more days won't matter. Let them have their moment. Once I have enough evidence, none of them will escape. For the next 2 days, I behaved. I didn't try to run again. I ate when I should, slept when I should, appearing to have accepted my fate. My parents thought I'd been broken into submission. They loosened their surveillance slightly, but the door remained locked. I still couldn't leave. I used those 2 days to carefully observe their routines. I memorized when everyone went to bed, and when they got up. I etched every detail into my mind, waiting for the perfect moment. On the 4th night, they finally made their move. At 2:07 a.m., I heard the lock click softly. It wasn't a tentative sound, but the sound of someone opening it with a key. I kept my eyes shut, maintaining steady breathing, pretending to be asleep, but every nerve in my body was on edge. The door was pushed open. The footsteps were very light, as if afraid of waking me. There were 2 people. From the rhythm of their breathing, I knew it was my mother and my father. They reached my desk and began rummaging through my things. I stayed in my sleeping position, but my heart raced involuntarily. I knew what they were looking for. My ID and my admission notice. Those 2 things were my keys out of this hell, and the leverage they needed to bind me. The searching continued for several minutes. I heard Mother's muffled voice. Old Lin, I can't find them. Where do you think he hid them? Father muttered impatiently. Check again. They must be in this room. He couldn't have taken them out. They searched the desk drawers, the bookshelf, and my backpack. They even checked my clothing pockets. I felt someone walk to the bedside and stand there, probably debating whether to check under my pillow. Suddenly, a 3rd voice came from the doorway. Lin Xiaoxiao. Found them. Shoo, don't wake him. Lin Xiaoxiao walked in impatiently, her footsteps much louder than our parents'. Clearly, she didn't care if she woke me. I felt her stand by my bed, staring down at me. Her gaze was as cold as a venomous snake. I could almost feel her, breath on my face. Then her voice rang out, chilling and certain. Stop faking. I know you're awake. I didn't move, maintaining my breathing rhythm, though I was cursing her in my head. The woman's intuition was terrifyingly sharp. Lin Xiaoxiao didn't push the issue of whether I was awake or not. Instead, she joined the search. Her movements were far more violent than our parents'. Things were tossed about haphazardly. Books were swept off the shelf onto the floor. Drawers were yanked out entirely. I had hidden my ID in the lining of my pillowcase, and the notice was folded small and sewn into the inner lining of my suitcase. I thought they wouldn't find them, but I underestimated Lin Xiaoxiao's obsession. She yanked my pillow away and began feeling the pillowcase, inch by inch. She searched like she was looking for drugs, leaving no corner unchecked. When she reached the hidden layer, her hand stopped. Then she let out a triumphant shriek. Found it! My heart tightened, but I still didn't move. Next, she pounced on my suitcase like a crazed beast. She dumped everything out and began tearing at the lining. The sound of fabric ripping was jarring. Her nails raked across the lining until she felt the stiff object. I couldn't take it anymore. I sat up abruptly and hit the bedside lamp switch. Bright light flooded the room, making everyone squint. I saw the scene clearly. Father and mother stood by the desk, holding my ID. They looked slightly guilty, but mostly indignant. Lin Xiaoxiao was by the suitcase, clutching an envelope, the envelope containing my admission notice. Her expression was like she had found buried treasure, greedy and excited. I stared at them, my voice like ice. What are you doing in the middle of the night? The three of them exchanged looks and finally dropped the act. Father slammed the ID onto the table. Lin Feng. We won't beat around the bush anymore. Xiaoxiao told us everything. As long as you're around, she can get high scores. It's the destiny between you siblings. Accept it. Mother leaned in with calculation and threat in her eyes. Xiaofeng, listen to me. Repeating a year won't hurt you. You're smart. You'll definitely get in again next year, and Xiaoxiao will have a place too. We'll have 2 prestigious graduates in the family. Isn't that a win-win? I said. I won't do it. I got up to retrieve my ID, but father shoved me back. He was stronger than I expected. I stumbled, crashing into the wall. The wound on my back throbbed with sharp pain. Father leaned in close, his voice a low threat. You won't. You think you have a choice? From now on, you're not going anywhere. Without your ID. And without the notice. You can't register. You'll stay here and repeat the year. After you take the exams next year, everything will go back to normal. You can still go to Tsinghua. It doesn't hurt anyone, doesn't hurt? Forcing me to repeat a year, derailing my entire life plan, and turning me into a tool. You call that not hurting? I took a deep breath, suppressing my surging rage. Now was not the time for a final confrontation. I needed more evidence. I asked them, so you're here to confiscate my things tonight? Mother sneered, no longer bothering to hide it. Confiscate. Everything in this house belongs to the parents. You're just a child. Your ID is important. So we're keeping it safe for you. I looked at Lin Xiaoxiao. She was pulling the admission notice from the envelope, a twisted sense of triumph on her face. She held that notice up, like a trophy. Then, she did something I would never forget. She gripped the paper, madness burning in her eyes. Right in front of me, she slowly and forcefully tore it in half. The sound of it tearing was sharp, like something inside me breaking. She wasn't satisfied. She kept tearing the halves, until they were just a pile of scraps, drifting to the floor like snow. She moved slowly, savoring every second. With every tear, her smile widened. I looked at those fragments. My mind went blank for a second. That was the reward for 12 years of hard study, the fruit of countless nights of work, the starting point of my new life, and she just tore it to pieces. Lin Xiaoxiao saw my expression and laughed like a maniac. Now that the notice is gone, how will you register? Dream on. You'll be my stepping stone for the rest of your life. I want you to rot in the mud with me. She grew more agitated as she spoke, her whole body shaking. With her disheveled hair, she looked like a ghost. Why should you be better than me? Why does everyone praise you? Why do you get to go to Tsinghua, while I'm mocked at home? Those points clearly should have been mine. Tears flowed from her eyes, but not from sadness, from resentment. It was jealousy and madness. But then, her voice suddenly dropped. It was as if she were talking to herself, yet looking at me. Do you know how scared I was? Since I was a child, I've known my grades were fake. They were stolen from you. She spoke with a distorted expression, saying how she was scared to death before every exam. She was afraid I wouldn't take them, or that I'd mess up. She feared everyone would find out she was actually useless. Through tears, she spoke of her hatred, hating that I was smarter than her. The funny thing was, she actually thought I didn't have to do anything to get such high scores. I hate myself even more, because I'm nothing without you. So you can't leave. You must stay. You must always be my stepping stone. That's the only way I can survive. I looked at her, looking at this person I've called sister for 18 years. For the first time, I felt she was pathetic. But being pathetic wasn't a reason for me to forgive her, nor was it an excuse for her to destroy my life. Father and mother stood to the side, watching Lin Xiaoxiao's outburst. Not a single person stopped her. In fact, there was a hint of approval on their faces, as if she had done something gratifying. Watching this scene, I suddenly felt it was absurd and very tragic. This was my family. This was the so-called blood is thicker than water. I lowered my head, looking at those fragments on the floor. My shoulders began to tremble. They thought I was crying, thinking I had finally broken down. Mother sneered, her tone full of condescending charity. All right, what are you crying for? It's not a big deal. Just take the exam again next year. Take this as a lesson. Be more obedient in the future. I didn't say a word, just crouched down and used my trembling hands to pick up the pieces. Lin Xiaoxiao saw my wretched state, and the smile on her face grew more unrestrained. Cry. Keep crying. You deserve it. This is your fate. I looked up at her. She froze, because there were no tears in my eyes, only cold resentment, and a fleeting smile. She was startled by that smile. Instinctively taking a step back, she asked what I was laughing at. I slowly stood up, my voice raspy yet calm. Nothing. I was just thinking your performance was brilliant. If you can't make it in life, you could always become an actress. I didn't say anything more, but pretended to collapse onto the edge of the bed in despair. My eyes were hollow, muttering to myself, it's over. Everything is over. Seeing my state, Lin Xiaoxiao's vigilance gradually faded, replaced by the smugness of a victor. Now you know fear? What were you doing before this? Father snorted coldly, and stuffed my ID into his pocket. Fine. Everyone go back to sleep. From today on, this kid isn't going anywhere. The three of them, as if they had completed a mission, walked out of my room. Before leaving, Mother even locked the door from the outside. The sound of the lock clicking was quiet, yet it hit my heart like a clap of thunder. I was locked in. The room fell back into darkness. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to their receding footsteps, listening to the house return to silence. Then I stood up, walked to the bookshelf, and from the pile of junk, I pulled out the backup phone that had been flashing its red recording light. They didn't expect it. They searched the entire room, but forgot to check the pile of clutter they thought was garbage. The recording captured everything. Lin Xiaoxiao's madness as she tore the notice, my parents standing by watching coldly, and even their faces as they encouraged her. The conspiracy they admitted out loud. It was all in this video. I uploaded the video to the cloud as a backup, and backed it up again to ensure it was safe. Then I edited a short version, and posted it online, captioning it, "This is the toxic family I want to escape from." After posting, I dialed the emergency number. "I want to report an emergency. I am being illegally detained by my family." The operator asked for my address and basic info, and I answered them one by one. They said they'd send someone and told me to wait. After the call, I muted the phone and hid it back in the junk pile. Then I lay back on the bed. My heart was racing, but I had to stay calm on the surface. I didn't know how long it would take for the police to arrive or what would happen before then. But I knew that as long as I made it through tonight, everything would change. Minutes and seconds ticked by. The sky outside began to turn pale gray. My eyes stayed wide open, staring at the ceiling, my ears capturing every subtle sound in the house. At 4:23, I heard footsteps. It was Lin Xiaoxiao. Her steps were very light, as if she were afraid of waking anyone, but they were still clearly audible in the silent night. She stopped outside my door. I held my breath and stayed perfectly still. The lock rattled. She came in again. I closed my eyes and faked sleep, the sound of my heartbeat like a drum in my ears. She walked to my bedside and stood there for a moment. I could feel her gaze on me, filled with scrutiny and suspicion. Then she started wandering around the room. The footsteps echoed strangely, like a beast patrolling its territory. I didn't know what she was looking for, but I had a bad feeling. The footsteps stopped at the bookshelf. My heart skipped a beat. The sound of rummaging started. She was digging through that pile of junk. My fingers quietly gripped the corner of the sheet, my mind racing with plans. If she discovered the phone, what should I do? Suddenly, the rummaging stopped. The air froze. I could almost hear my own heart. What is this? I knew she had found it. It was over. I snapped my eyes open and sat up, just in time to see her holding the backup phone. The red recording dot was still glowing on the screen. Her face turned from confusion to shock. then into fury. Lin Feng, you were recording? She screamed and lunged at me, like a crazed beast. I didn't have time to dodge. Her nails scratched right across my face, a stinging pain. I grabbed her wrist, and we began to scuffle. Even though she was a girl, she seemed possessed in that moment, with an incredible amount of strength. We knocked over the nightstand, and the lamp fell, shattering on the floor. The commotion was too loud. My parents were quickly awakened. Father rushed in, saw the scene, and without a word, shoved me away. The back of my head slammed against the wall. You dare hit your sister? I clutched my head, gasping for air. I didn't hit her. She attacked me first. Lin Xiaoxiao had already scrambled up from the floor, the phone still tightly gripped in her hand. She ran behind Father, as if she had found her protector. He was secretly recording us. He recorded everything. Father's face changed instantly. He snatched the phone away, looked down at the screen, and his expression grew darker and darker. The veins on his forehead were bulging. Very well. You're really something, aren't you? He slammed the phone onto the floor, shattering the screen. Then he stomped on it several times, until the phone was nothing more than a pile of scrap metal. I watched the crushed phone, but I wasn't panicked at all, because the video had already been uploaded to the cloud. That phone was just a shell now, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I put on a look of total despair, as if my last lifeline had been snatched away. Mother had rushed in as well. After understanding the situation, her face turned grim. This ungrateful brat wanted to call the police? He wanted to send us all to jail. He must have wanted to post the video online, just like how he exposed me before. Without a word, Father slapped me again. My face swelled up instantly, and I tasted blood. Let me tell you, Lin Feng, this isn't over today. You stay here quietly. Don't even think about going anywhere. If you dare call the police or post anything, I'll break your legs. He walked out, cursing under his breath. He told Mother to keep a close eye on me before he left. Mother stood at the door. Xiao Feng, you've disappointed me so much. Everything we do is for this family. Why can't you understand? Fine. Just reflect on yourself. She left too. The door was locked from the outside again. This time he even moved something to block the door. I heard the sound of a chair being moved. I was the only one left in the room, surrounded by a mess. I leaned in the corner, touching my swollen face, thinking they didn't know the police were on their way, or that the video was already online. They thought destroying a phone solved everything. Little did they know, the real storm was just beginning. Time continued to pass. The sky grew brighter. I heard birds outside. Around 6 a.m. I heard Father's phone ring, followed by his panicked voice. What video? Who posted it? Then came Mother's piercing scream, and Lin Xiaoxiao's cries. The whole house was in chaos. I knew the video had gone viral. I don't know how long it was, maybe half an hour, maybe an hour. I heard a knock at the door. The knocking was loud and urgent, accompanied by a shout, "Open up! Police!" Someone reported an emergency. Father's voice echoed in the living room, panicked and guilty. Police? Who called the police? Old Lin, what do we do? Don't panic. Hide that brat. Just say he's not home. I listened from the room. Hide? Where would they hide me? The knocking grew more urgent. Open up, or we'll use force. Father finally couldn't hold out. I heard the front door being opened, followed by a noisy exchange of words. I couldn't hear the details, but I could sense Father making excuses, explaining and trying to smooth things over. A few minutes later, the obstacles outside my room were moved. The door was opened and 2 uniformed officers stood there. Their brows furrowed the moment they saw me. The younger officer walked over. Are you Lin Feng, the one who called? I nodded. He looked at the scars and the swelling on my face, then at the mess in the room. His expression turned serious. You're injured. Who did this? My father. Father's voice came from the living room, filled with anger and guilt. Officer, this is a family matter. What's wrong with disciplining my own son? The older officer looked back at him. A family matter? Illegal detention and restriction of personal freedom is a family matter? We received a report that someone was being locked in by their family. We also received a video. Take a look for yourself. You call this a family matter? The video I recorded was playing on the screen. The images of my parents and Lin Xiaoxiao searching my things, Lin Xiaoxiao's madness as she tore the notice, and the very words they said. Everything was crystal clear. Father's face instantly turned deathly pale. Mother's legs went weak, and she nearly collapsed to the floor. Lin Xiaoxiao hid in the corner, her hair a mess, her eyes hollow, looking like a crushed insect. Lin Feng, can you walk? We need you to come with us to make a statement. I nodded and stood up, walking out over the fragments on the floor. As I passed my father, he suddenly reached out to stop me, but was brushed aside by the officer. You are now suspected of illegal detention and intentional injury. Behave. Father's hand froze in mid-air, his expression like he had swallowed a fly. Angry, scared, and helpless. I didn't look at him and walked straight out that door. Behind me came Mother's wailing. Xiao Feng, you can't do this to us. We're your parents. If you do this, how can we show our faces again? I stopped my footsteps. You stopped treating me like a human long ago. Now it's your turn to see what that feels like. Mother was stunned, as if seeing me for the first time. Lin Xiaoxiao suddenly rushed over. You'll regret this. I won't let you get away with this. I looked at her distorted face and said calmly, Lin Xiaoxiao, remember this, from today on, all our ties are severed. Then I turned and got into the police car, never looking back. It was already noon by the time I finished the statement. Based on the video evidence and my injuries, my father was suspected of intentional injury and illegal detention and would be handled according to law. As for Lin Xiaoxiao destroying property, even though the school issued the notice, it was my personal property. She also had to bear legal responsibility. What about my admission notice? Can it be reissued? The police said I'd have to contact the school, but they'd help me with the necessary documentation. I thanked them and walked out of the station. The sunlight was blinding. I stood on the steps, squinting at the sky, feeling like I had just woken up from a very long nightmare. Now it was finally over. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. Picked it up, and a familiar voice came through. Xiao Feng, is that you? Are you okay? We saw the video. His voice was urgent. There were other voices in the background. All my future roommates must have been there. I'm fine. I've already reported it to the police. A cheer went up on the other end. Chun Xian's voice came through. That's great, brother. I was worried sick. Where are you now? Do you need us to come get you? I smiled and said it wasn't necessary. After hanging up, I stood there, thinking for a long time about what to do next. My ID was taken by my father. My notice was torn by Lin Xiaoxiao, and I had no money and nowhere to go. But I wasn't panicked at all, because the hardest step had already been taken. The rest was just a matter of procedure. I could go to the school and explain to get a new notice, go to the station to get a new ID, and apply for a student loan for tuition. All these difficulties were solvable. The only thing unsolvable was the toxicity of my family, and I had personally cut that out now. I got a temporary ID at the station, and then used the last bit of money I had to buy a train ticket to Bayan. It was already evening by the time I boarded the train. The setting sun spilled onto the seats through the window. I leaned against the window, watching the scenery race backward, and a sense of ease and freedom surged in my heart. So this was what freedom felt like. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. For the first time in a long while, I had the most peaceful sleep. No nightmares, no sudden waking, only a long and gentle darkness. When I woke up, the train had reached Bayan Station. I dragged my simple luggage out of the station. Before me was an unfamiliar city. The tall buildings were completely different from that small town. There was an indescribable scent in the air. It was hope, the future, and the taste of a new life. I found the cheapest hostel to stay in, then contacted the school to explain my situation. The admissions officer was shocked by my story, and said they'd help me handle it as soon as possible. He told me not to worry. 3 days later, I received the reissued notice. The brand new red cover looked exactly the same as the previous one, but the meaning was entirely different. I pressed the notice to my chest, standing at the school gate, looking up at the plaque that read, Bayan University. My eyes suddenly welled up. 12 years. Since I can remember, I was left in the countryside, ignored and neglected, treated as if I were invisible. I thought I'd have to live in Lin Xiaoxiao's shadow my whole life, being her stepping stone forever. But now I am standing here, by my own strength, standing at the gates of the country's top university. There are no more people behind me dragging me down. From this moment on, my life truly belongs to me. On the first day of school, I met the roommates I'd gotten to know online. Li San was very tall, and had dark skin. He was clearly an athlete. Chun Xian wore glasses, and was very refined, having been admitted through a competition. There was also Wang Mo, who didn't say much but seemed very reliable. The first thing they said to me was, "Holy crap, you're the Lin Feng from that video? You look way better than you did in the video." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What do you mean, better? The wounds on my face haven't even healed yet. Chun Xian leaned in to inspect my face closely. He frowned. There are still bruises. He hit you pretty hard. Wang Mo didn't say anything but silently pulled a tube of ointment from his bag. For the swelling, I took, feeling warm inside, and said thanks. That night, the four of us sat in the dorm and talked for a long time. They asked how the aftermath of the incident was going. The police were still processing it, and the final results weren't out yet. Chen Xi sighed and said, "It really hasn't been easy." Wang Mo still didn't say much, but he poured me a glass of water. Later, the topic gradually shifted. We talked about our majors, clubs, and our plans for the 4 years of college. Normal things that college students talk about. I suddenly realized that this was what a normal life was like. This was what being 18 should be like. That night, as I lay on the dorm bed, listening to the rising and falling snores of my roommates and watching the moonlight outside the window, I thought of my grandfather. I remembered what he said, "Studying is the only way for children of poor families." Grandpa, I did it. I gave my grandfather a call to tell him I had reached the school and that everything was fine. He was so happy on the other end, he didn't know what to say, only repeatedly muttering, "Good, good. Good, you've made it. You've really made it." I didn't tell him about everything that happened because I was afraid he'd worry. I only said the school was big and beautiful and that the cafeteria food was delicious. He was very happy listening to me and told me to study hard and not to worry about him, saying his health was just fine. After hanging up, I lay back on the bed, thinking that once I had the ability, I would definitely bring my grandfather to live with me and let him live a good life. This is what I owed him, the only family member I wanted to repay. My university life unfolded as planned. Military training, attending classes, club activities were busy and fulfilling. I studied like my life depended on it, participating in every competition possible, hoping to prove myself and make up for all that lost time. A month later, I received a notice from the police station. My father, for illegal detention and intentional injury, was sentenced to 3 months in detention, with 6 months of probation. My mother was given 15 days of administrative detention as an accomplice. Lin Xiaoxiao, for destroying others' property, was fined and ordered to pay for the damages. The sentences weren't heavy, but they were enough for them. That video had completely destroyed their reputation. My father lost his job, and my mother was constantly gossiped about by neighbors, unable to hold her head up high. Lin Xiaoxiao had it even worse. Her name had become a laughingstock online. The 751 incident plus the video of the brothers' betrayal. Those two things were enough to socially ruin her for life. I heard she later suffered from mental health issues and was sent to see a psychiatrist. I didn't know the exact details. They tried to contact me via phone calls and text messages. The messages were all the same, begging for forgiveness, asking me to drop the charges, and pleading for me to delete the video. I ignored them all. Eventually, they probably gave up, as I never heard from them again. That past was like a drawer I had locked away. I had no intention of ever opening it again. Days passed by. Freshman, sophomore, junior year. My grades consistently ranked in the top 3 of my major. I won scholarships, joined the party, and even published 2 research papers. Everyone said Lin Feng had a limitless future. I would smile and stay humble, but in my heart, I knew that I had traded my very life for these achievements. Every late night, every moment of exhaustion was all to get one step further away from that quagmire. During the summer of my junior year, I went back to my hometown to see my grandfather. He had aged significantly. His back was more hunched, and his hair was entirely white, but his spirit was still good, and he was as happy as a child when he saw me. I sat with him in the courtyard, just like when I was little. He shelled peanuts for me, and I told him about things at school. The sunlight was warm, and the shadows of the locust tree danced on the ground. Grandpa suddenly asked, "Are you still in contact with your parents?" "No." He fell silent for a moment, then sighed. "After all, they are your parents. No matter how bad they were, they're the ones who gave you life." "Grandpa, I know what you mean, but some things can't be forgiven just by saying so. They hurt me too deeply." Grandpa didn't say anything more. "I won't force you. It's good that you have your own thoughts. As long as you are living well, that's enough for me." That night, I lay on the earthen bed of the old house, just like when I was a child, but my state of mind was entirely different. The chirping of insects outside was still monotonous, yet I felt exceptionally at peace. This was my only home, and Grandpa was my only family. Those other people had died in my heart long ago. In my senior year, I was successfully recommended for graduate school, continuing my master's at Bayan. At the same time, I received internship offers from several well-known companies. Everything was heading in the right direction. On graduation day, I stood at the school gate in my cap and gown, and had my roommate take a picture of me. The background was that same Bayan University plaque. It was exactly the same as when I first stood there 4 years ago, but I was no longer that boy covered in scars from 4 years ago. I had grown taller, become stronger, and the gloom in my eyes had been replaced by confidence. The scars were still there, but they had scabbed over, They no longer bled. They only served as a reminder of the road I had traveled. Lisan put his arm around my shoulder. Xiaofeng, what are your plans for the future? Finish grad school, then work. I'll bring my grandpa here to live with me. That sounds great. I'll treat you all to dinner later. No problem. That day, the four of us drank a lot of alcohol, talking about the past and the future. Eventually, we all passed out in the dorm. Waking up the next day, my head ached terribly, but my heart felt full. Youth passed by just like that. 4 years of college life had come to an end. Next was a new journey. I was even busier during graduate school. Coursework, research projects, and internships left almost no time to breathe, but I enjoyed it because with every busy day, I was one step further away from my former self. In the winter of my second year of grad school, Grandpa passed away. He went peacefully in his sleep without any pain. When the villagers called to tell me, I was in the middle of a lab experiment. The moment I heard the news, the test tube in my hand dropped and shattered on the floor. I took leave and rushed back to the village overnight. Pushing open the door of the old house, I saw a coffin placed in the main hall. Grandpa lay inside, wearing the navy blue cotton coat I had bought for him, with a faint smile lingering on his face. I knelt before the coffin, not making a sound, but my tears wouldn't stop flowing. The elders said it was a blessed passing since Grandpa was over 80, his grandson was successful, and he went peacefully. He was a lucky man. But I didn't want any blessed passing. I just wanted him to stay with me for a few more years. I wanted to wait until I worked and earned money to take him to the city to live in a big house and eat good food. I hadn't had the chance to do anything yet, so why did he have to go? It was snowing on the day of the funeral. I personally buried my grandfather's remains on the hillside behind the old house. From there, you could see the whole village and that old locust tree. I stood before the grave for a long time until the snow turned my shoulders white. Grandpa, you wait and see. I will definitely make something of myself and make you proud up there. The wind blew my words away, but I knew he must have heard them. After handling Grandpa's funeral, I returned to school, burying all my sorrow deep in my heart. I studied and worked even harder. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to make it. This was my promise to Grandpa. And my commitment to myself. I graduated with honors in my third year of grad school and received offers from several top companies at once. Ultimately, I chose a tech giant, with a starting annual salary of 500,000 yuan. For a child from the countryside, this was a figure I hadn't even dared to dream of. On my first day of work, I stood under that magnificent office building, looked up at the blue sky, and thought, Grandpa, I did it. After starting work, I rented a one-bedroom apartment. It was clean and tidy, though not large. It was my own nest. I placed Grandpa's photo on the desk, and every day before leaving, I would look at him, say, good morning, and when I came home at night, I'd tell him what had happened that day. Life like this was lonely but very stable. 3 years later, I bought a house in Bayan. With a 30-year mortgage, the monthly payment was over 10,000. The pressure was significant but manageable. The house wasn't big, just 2 rooms and a hall, but it was enough for me. On the day I moved into my new home, I stood by the window, looking at the busy streets below. I suddenly remembered many years ago, the boy who was locked in the storage room. That boy would never have dreamed that one day he would own his own home in this city, have a respectable job, have a few true friends, and possess a brand new life. Fate gave me the worst possible hand, but I played it into a winning one. That night, I had a little to drink alone, and said to Grandpa's photo, Grandpa, you were right. Education really is the only way out for a poor child. I made it out. The moonlight outside was bright as that summer night many years ago. The night Grandpa sat under the old locust tree, telling me stories, felt like it was just yesterday. Days passed peacefully like this. Work was smooth, and I occasionally gathered with my old roommates. Life was simple but fulfilling, until one day, the peace was broken. It was a weekend in my 4th year of work. I was reading at home, when my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment before answering the call. On the other end was an old and unfamiliar female voice. Is this Lin Feng? It's me. May I ask who's calling? The other party was silent for a moment, then said something that made my whole body shudder. I am your grandmother. The word grandmother was so foreign to me. So foreign that I had almost forgotten that I even had a grandmother as a relative. Xiaofeng, can you come to the hospital? Your mother. She isn't going to make it. I was silent for a long time, not saying a word. My mind was a complete blank. Grandmother's voice was tearful. Your mother. I know they wronged you, but she is your mother after all. She's on her last breath now, and wants to see you one last time. What happened to her? Late-stage cancer. It had already spread by the time they found it. The doctor said it's a matter of days. I leaned back on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, not knowing what to say. 7 years since that incident, I hadn't seen them once. I hadn't made a single call, or sent a single text. I thought our lives would never intersect again. I never expected the reason for our reunion to be this. Grandmother waited on the other end of the line. I could hear her suppressed sobbing. Send me the address. After hanging up, I sat on the sofa for a long time. My mind was a mess, recalling many things, those days locked in that room. Those nights of being beaten and scolded, that torn-up admission notice. Those wounds had long since scabbed over, but now they were throbbing again. The question of whether or not to go troubled me all day. In the end, I decided to go. Not for forgiveness, but simply to put a full stop to this part of my past. The next day I took leave and drove to the hospital. It was a hospice facility. I found the ward using the address grandmother had sent. The moment I pushed open the door, I saw my mother lying in the hospital bed. She was skin and bones, barely recognizable. Her face was sallow and gaunt, her hair sparse and graying. She was a different person from the sharp-tongued, mean woman of 7 years ago. When grandmother saw me arrive, she quickly stood up and took my hand. Xiaofeng, you're here. It's good that you're here. She's been calling for you. I didn't speak, but simply stood by the bed, looking down at the dying woman. My mother opened her eyes. Her cloudy gaze fell upon my face. Her lips quivered, and she made a weak sound. Xiaofeng. Tears suddenly welled up in her eyes, streaming down her withered cheeks. She wanted to raise her hand but had no strength, only trembling as she spoke. You're here. You actually came to see me. I didn't respond, but stood there with a strangely calm heart. There was no hatred, nor was there any sadness, only an indescribable numbness. My mother spoke intermittently, her voice sounding like it was squeezed from her throat. Xiaofeng, Mom is sorry. I owe you so much. All these years, I've wanted to find you, to say I'm sorry, but I didn't have the face to do it. She coughed several times, and grandmother hurried forward to pat her back. I stood to the side, still watching without moving. Took a long while for her to catch her breath. She continued, I've done many things wrong in this life, but the one I wronged most was you. I was biased toward your sister since you were small, and left you in the countryside without a care. Xiaofeng, please. She became more agitated as she spoke, but it seemed she was using her last bits of energy. She stared at me intently, her eyes filled with pleading and despair. Xiaofeng, can you forgive me? I know I don't deserve it, but I just want to hear you call me Mom before I die. The ward was terrifyingly quiet, save for the rhythmic beeping of the monitor. I looked at her, looked at this woman who gave birth to me but had never loved me. Looking at her withered state, a complex wave of emotion suddenly surged in my heart. Did I hate her? I did. Those nights locked in the storage room. Those days of being treated as invisible, the moment my dreams were torn apart by her own hands. Every scene was etched into my bones. But standing here now, looking at this woman on the brink of death, I realized that those feelings of hate had long since faded. It wasn't forgiveness, it was just that I no longer cared. I spoke, my voice calm. I don't hate you anymore. She was stunned. But I also cannot forgive you. I continued. You asked me if I could call you Mom. I can't do it. All these years, the position for a mother in my heart has been empty. There was only Grandpa. My mother's body trembled violently, as if the last thread of strength had been pulled from her. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but only broken whimpers came out. Grandmother, anxious, grabbed my hand and said, Xiaofeng, just call her once, so she can go in peace. I shook my head and turned to leave. When I reached the door, my mother's hoarse cry came from behind me. I was wrong. I was truly wrong. I paused but didn't turn back. I stood there for a few seconds, then pushed the door open and walked out. The corridor was very quiet. I leaned against the wall, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. My heart was racing, but I felt no regret. I sat on a bench outside the hospital for a long time, smoking half a pack of cigarettes, watching the people come and go. Some went in crying, some came out smiling. Life and death were just like that. My phone rang. It was grandmother calling. I hesitated but answered anyway. Grandmother's voice sounded exhausted. Don't blame me for calling you here. Your mother really is at the end. I know what they did before was wrong, but she truly regretted it. She's been talking about you for years. I remained silent. Your heart is linked to this family. When you were involved in that incident, she didn't have a single night of peaceful sleep. Your father lost his job and spent every day drinking his sorrows away. Then the two of them argued every day. Did you care about your sister? That whole family is completely dead now. I asked what had happened to Lin Xiaoxiao. Grandmother was silent for a while. Don't even mention her. That child is ruined. The stir that incident caused was so big. Her mental state was traumatized. It got worse and worse. And now she's living in a psychiatric hospital. Hearing whether she was doing well or not didn't make me feel anything. Neither relief nor sympathy. It just felt like karmic retribution. Xiao Feng, I know you harbor resentment, but your mother really doesn't have many days left. Can't you go see her again? Grandmother, I went. I've seen her. That's everything I can do. Grandmother started crying on the other end. You child. How can your heart be so hard? It's not that my heart is hard. It's that they broke my heart long ago. You should ask them how they treated me back then. Grandmother went quiet. Took a long time before she sighed. I won't force you anymore. You have your own life now. Just live well. After hanging up, I sat on the bench a while longer, then got up and drove home. 3 days later, grandmother called again to say my mother had passed. At the end, she was still calling my name. I simply said, I understand. I asked when the funeral would be. Grandmother said it was the day after tomorrow. I told her I would be there. After hanging up, I stood by the window looking at the night view, unsure of what I was feeling. A bit heavy, but mostly relieved. The woman who gave birth to me was dead, yet I felt no agonizing sorrow. Just a sense of the dust finally settling. It was as if a book had finally reached its last page. No matter how terrible the content, at least it was over. I went to the funeral. I stood in the crowd, looking at my mother's portrait. She looked in the photo as she did 7 years ago. At that time she wasn't sick yet, and a mean smile was on her face. Not many people came, just a few distant relatives, my grandmother and grandfather, and one person I didn't expect to see, my father. He had aged a great deal. His hair was gray, and he looked haggard. He seemed to have shrunk in size. He stood in the funeral hall dressed in mourning clothes, his expression blank. When he saw me arrive, his eyes flickered for a moment, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he said nothing. He just lowered his head and continued burning spirit money. I didn't acknowledge him either. I followed the protocol, offered incense, bowed, and then stood in the corner. Xiao Feng, it's good you came. Your mother can rest in peace now. I gave a muffled grunt, without saying more. After the funeral service ended, the guests gradually dispersed. Only a few close relatives remained in the hall. My father was still kneeling there burning paper. The firelight illuminated his aged face. Looking at his back, he suddenly felt like a stranger. This was my father. The man who was once so high and mighty, the man who had beaten and kicked me, the man who had locked me in that room. Now he knelt there, looking like a stray dog. He must have felt my gaze, because he turned back to look at me. His eyes were red, and his lips moved. I didn't respond, but simply watched him quietly. He stood up and walked toward me, his steps somewhat unsteady. As he stood before me, I noticed he smelled of alcohol. Xiao Feng, Dad has wronged you. All these years, I've wanted to find you, to apologize to you. But I didn't have the face. Your mother is gone now, and I don't have many years left myself. Can you forgive me? I looked at him, looking at the man I once hated to the core, now standing before me, looking as pathetic as a dog. I finally spoke. My voice was very calm. You know, when I was a child, there was one thing I could never understand. Why other children's parents loved them so much, while my parents treated me like a burden. Later I understood. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough, it's that you were never fit to be parents. My father's face twitched, as if he had been slapped hard across the face. You ask if I can forgive you. My answer is the same as what I said about her. I don't hate you, but I won't forgive you either. Not in this lifetime. My father froze, his tears falling even harder. He reached out to grab my arm, but I pulled away. From now on, we have no relationship. You live your life, and I'll live mine. Life, death, illness. We are strangers now. This is the last time we'll meet. With that, I turned to leave, without looking back. Behind me came my father's wailing, and my grandmother's shouts, but I turned a deaf ear. Step by step, I walked out of the funeral hall, out of that suffocating place. After getting in the car, I started the engine, and got onto the highway back to Bayan. The night was deep, and there weren't many cars on the road. As I drove, my mind was filled with memories. Being abandoned for 12 years, being treated as if I were invisible for 6 years in the countryside, being locked in a room at the age of 18, and my admission letter being torn to shreds by my own sister. These events replayed in my head like a movie. At 29, I have a house, a car, and a career in the city. I'm living a life I once never dared to dream of. And what about them? My father lost his job and is destitute. My mother died in depression, and Lin Xiaoxiao has gone mad. The family that once wanted to trample me under their feet has completely fallen apart. This isn't my revenge. This is their own karma. Halfway there, I pulled over at a rest area. Standing in the night wind, I looked up at the starry sky. Suddenly, I thought of my grandfather. I remembered him sitting under the old locust tree telling me stories, and I remembered the words he said. Education is the only way out for a child from a poor family. Grandfather, I made it. I've become the person you hoped I would be. My eyes grew moist, but I didn't let the tears fall. I just took a deep breath, got back in the car, and kept driving. 3 a.m. I arrived home. Lying in bed, watching the sky gradually brighten outside the window, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Those old grievances and feuds, those tangles of love and hate, from now on they have nothing to do with me. I can finally let go of the past completely, and start a new life. A year later I was promoted to the youngest manager in the department, and my salary doubled. That same year I met a girl. Her name was Xiao Wanner. She was a designer in the neighboring department. She was very beautiful, and when she smiled, her eyes curved like crescent moons. We met through a collaborative project, and we gradually became close. She knew about my past, including those painful memories, but she didn't look at me differently. She just listened seriously, and then said, "Those things weren't your fault. You've already done so well." At that moment, a corner of my heart seemed to be filled with something warm. We started dating, moved in together, and then I proposed. On the day of the proposal, I took her to my hometown, to my grandfather's grave. I knelt before the grave and introduced her. "Grandfather, this is my girlfriend. Her name is Xiao Wanner. She's a good person. I want to marry her." Xiao Wanner stood beside me, her eyes red. She also knelt and kowtowed 3 times to my grandfather. The wind was strong that day, making the weeds in front of the grave rustle. I always felt that it was my grandfather responding to me, saying, "Good, good, good. My grandson has finally made it." When I was 32, we got married. The wedding wasn't big. We only invited a few close friends and relatives. My old roommates all came. Li San even served as my best man. At the wedding, he drank a bit too much, put his arm around my shoulder and said, "Lin Feng, I'm so happy for you. You finally made it through." I smiled and said, "Yeah, I finally made it through." A year later, Xiao Wanner became pregnant. 10 months later, our daughter was born. I named her Lin Cici. C stands for remembrance, to honor my grandfather. The moment I held my daughter, I suddenly burst into tears. It was a feeling I had never experienced in over 30 years. So this is what it means to be connected by blood, to be needed by someone, and to have a home. I looked at the little person in my arms and thought, I will definitely be a good father. I will never let her go through anything I went through. I will give her the best love and the best protection, letting her grow up in the sunlight, never knowing the darkness that exists in this world. Xiao Wanner lay on the hospital bed and asked what I was thinking. I said, "I'm thinking that the luckiest thing in my life was surviving those hard days, and then meeting you." She reached out and took my hand. Me too. Outside the window, the sunlight shone perfectly on our family of 3, warm and bright. At that moment I suddenly felt that all the previous suffering was worth it, because it turned me into who I am today, taught me to cherish things, led me to meet the person I was meant to meet, and gave me this home of my own. I've taken back what fate owed me, and I've gained even more. Never give up on yourself, because you never know what kind of scenery is waiting for you once you get through the struggle.